voicemail.
Hey everybody, Larry, Fort Worth Memories Museum and Group, and Hometown Heroes, and Rick and Mary have a special guest. It's y'all show.
We do. I think today is episode 22.
22.
Woohoo.
22.
We're moving along.
Yeah, Mary, good morning. You're all
Morning.
festive looking in
Yeah,
your green
got my
Health
my
Club
run
Rudolph. Rudolph.
Yeah.
And today we have Chris Langlois. He's a Dallas police officer, but he's the grandson of one of the band of brothers, Doc Rowe, who was in the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment in the 101st Airborne in Easy Company.
That's right.
And he went from Normandy all the way through France,
All the way through.
all the way through Holland, through Belgium, through Germany, and ended up at the Eagle's Nest.
That's right.
And we're going to hear some stories about Doc, stories about a book that Chris has written about the Band of Brothers, and also maybe a little story or two from the Dallas Police Department. So, Chris, it's very good to have you.
I appreciate
Mary, we've got a big trip coming up. You leave
do.
Friday to
Leave
go
Friday.
to Honolulu.
Yeah, taking
Is
Don
that-
Graves
see the
to
checkerboard squares?
be there
Yeah.
for Pearl Harbor 81st anniversary. So we have
That's
two roll
supposed to
call
be
vets.
there.
We have brand new roll call
Yeah.
vet
Hey,
Carl
Ty.
Flinner, who is going to join us,
Ty.
and then we have Don
Oh, it's
Graves,
gone.
and we'll
It's
take
gone.
them.
Yep.
It's not going. Okay, now it's gone.
We had a little
A
problem.
little technical difficulty. It's fixed.
Are we good?
We're good. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, we are taking those two to Hawaii to go to Pearl Harbor for the 81st with Black Rifle Coffee Company. They've actually sponsored the trip, so it's going to be a really nice time. A little concerned about the volcano erupting right at the,
No,
all the gunk in the air. I'm not sure
might
that
not
that's
have a
good
lot of
for any of us.
sunshine, but
Yeah. Well, last year we sent 10 people last year, 10 vets, and it just rained. It was like deluged on them. It was
my
pretty.
goodness.
So I've been watching the forecast. It doesn't look like we're gonna get that,
Good.
but it's looking good. And then we come back home on Friday the 9th. That early that morning we land, and then at 11:30 is our luncheon. So we're gonna have it's gonna be a busy day for me.
a very busy
I'll be
day.
really tired Friday night. But the luncheons are always so great that it just energizes you. So you don't have a choice but to have energy, And I think we're well up over 300 RSVPs now. Using the new system, maybe closing in on 350. So if folks out there are listening and they want to come to the luncheon, go to our website at roll-call.org. And if you look down in the lower left of the screen, you'll see the RSVP button. It's real simple, takes less than a minute to RSVP, and you'll be in, good to go, and come on out and join us. Vets always eat free. All we ask is a non-vets, if they can, contribute $10 toward the cost of the food. And we're going to have a comedian who is an Air Force vet, and that should be pretty good.
Be a good show.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, Chris, we're so happy to have you.
My honor.
Yes.
And Chris kind of came to us by the way of Danny Stoppel, who lives in Vienna, Austria.
That's right.
And it's a small world whenever somebody from Vienna links somebody from Dallas up to somebody in Fort Worth.
That's right.
Sure is.
And, that's a whole story in itself.
Right.
But your grandfather was an Army medic.
He was, and became famous after a little book was written, not the book, but really after a little miniseries by a couple of guys, Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, managed to put together. And he became worldwide famous, and really became famous to us because we just didn't know those stories as family members at all. So knew the book. The book came out in '92, and I was a sophomore, junior in college, and so I remember coming home because on Sundays you come home and get mama's cooking and you wash clothes, right? Two important
Right.
things as a college student. And I remember mom handing me that book. It's weird. It's weird that I remember that, and it's very vivid. I remember where I was standing, and she goes, your grandfather jumped on, your pawpaw jumped on D-Day, and D-Day meant nothing to me. And girls and beer were the top of the list. And I remember, being a good college student, you flip to the back of a book, right, and there's the index, and so there's Roe, and he's on 3 pages of that book. I read that in 90 seconds, and I remember it's weird. I remember that book, pop, when you slam it, and I remember thinking, if you were in World War II and you only made 3 pages of the book, you obviously didn't do anything, right? I mean, I knew enough to know World War II was a big deal, and 3 pages of, a few paragraphs means you didn't do much. And so that was the end of it for me. And it wasn't until 2001 when the series came out, and we heard late. We knew that Shane Taylor, who played my grandfather, had emailed my aunt and asked some questions. But again, if you're only on 3 pages, it's not that big a deal. And we knew nothing of the size and scope and scale of the series, obviously. And we found out late that we could go to Normandy, to France, and for the world premiere, it was going to be on Utah Beach, wherever that was, and meant nothing to me at the time. And we get there, and it's a huge production. And so a bunch of us, 12, 13 of the family went, and we got to the hotel and checking in with HBO, and we're here with the Rowe family. And I got to the front of the line. I said, we're here with the Rowe family, and she goes, "Oh, you're going to love episode 6. It's all about your grandfather." And I literally said, "Why would it be about my grandfather?"
Yeah.
Again, he's on 3 pages of the book. Why? What are you talking about? So, we started meeting the actors, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Chris. I'm a grandson of Doc Rowe." And they're like, "Oh my goodness!" Somebody shakes your hand back at you. You know that? They're like, "Oh my goodness, it's so mean." And I'm like, "What is going on? I didn't do anything. I'm here on vacation, And so the actors had obviously learned so much more about my grandfather from talking to the other veterans and talking to the research guys. They knew more about my grandfather than I did. And so that was a surreal experience, and it's just been one after the other ever since then.
But once that happened, then you kind of started really digging in to learn more about your grandfather and the Band of Brothers.
Yeah, so that started a path for me. I've been to a bunch of the reunions since then. I've helped coordinate reunions. Talking to the actors and the writers and the directors and all these guys, and learning what they knew about my grandfather, meeting the veterans. Obviously, that opened up a whole nother world to hear these guys, almost teary-eyed, say that your grandfather was a hero and an angel, and it's just like, oh my goodness, it's been unbelievable. Yeah.
And so you went to the premiere,
Yeah.
and then did you travel some more after that?
I've been very lucky to go back a lot with the World War II Foundation. My buddy Tim Gray, who's produced 22, 23 documentaries about World War II. He's done an unbelievable job in saving these stories and telling these stories. Been to Normandy 2 or 3 times. I've been to Bastogne 2 or 3 times. I've done Holland and toured around where Easy Company was and the 101st was, and then I've made it all the way to Eagle's Nest for a couple hours before the rain came in. But I'll go back because it's one of the few places. But we know where Easy Company was in Bastogne. One spot, the Bois Jacques, where they were, and those foxholes are still there. So I know that I'm walking where my grandfather was. And then Eagle's Nest is another one of those places where it's a very small. It's not a big building. So it's a small house. But I know I'm walking where my grandfather was in World War II. So
And Hitler walked.
And where Hitler walked.
Where Hitler-
That's
If
it.
that's the one that's way up on the
Way up high.
mountaintop,
Yeah.
and it shows him, is that the one where it shows him out overlooking and kind of looks like he's dancing, and his wife or girlfriend, whatever, was there with him?
That's right. She spent more time there than he did, but
Yeah.
It's a pretty nice place. Pretty good view, wasn't it?
yeah. He didn't like it, but it's an unbelievable. I mean, it's just the views are amazing.
You were talking about the foxholes. Carmen Giese that we talked about earlier, he's met Carmen. But Carmen, he and the guy he was in the foxhole with, one of them found their foxhole
Yes.
and was standing at it, and sent a picture of it back to the other one.
Yeah.
So, because, Carmen, and probably your grandfather too, Carmen spent 8 days in the foxhole. Dug in.
Right.
And that was the coldest winter in about 100 years in Bastogne. And that was during the Battle of the Bulge.
Right.
So you wrote a book.
I did, even with a Louisiana education. I like to brag that all those years finally paid off.
And this book is called How Easy Company Became a Band of Brothers. And actually, it's a book for younger teenagers, all the way up through adults.
Yeah, I've had some 6-year-olds who loved it. We have a family friend. He called it the War Book. So he couldn't read it, but he for days and weeks, his mom said we had to read the War Book to him every night. Probably really middle school and up. But I mean, I've had 80-year-old women in Belgium love it. So I like to say from age 60 to 80. If you're in that category, you're probably going to find some. I really, when we started losing those guys, we started losing Buck Compton and Don Malarkey and Dick Winters and Bill and Babe. Look, it gives me goosebumps. Those guys were real stalwarts of the company. But what they all had in common was they all went to schools and talked to kids. And when we started losing those guys, it really hit me that we're losing the face-to-face stories, the connections with the next generations. And so I thought, hey, listen, I'll do a PowerPoint. I'll create a PowerPoint. That was my big thing. I'll create a PowerPoint. I can send you the flash drive anywhere, and anybody could go present. And then I realized I don't know anything about PowerPoint. So part of me always wanted to write a book, and so well, let me just take a stab at it. And I go, I know the story, right? I watched the miniseries, and I'll knock this thing out in 3 months. Well, a year and a half later, it does not, and that's only 62 pages, and half of them are illustrated. Again, Louisiana education. It helps to have illustrations. Because you got to get the dates right, you got to get the chronology right, you've got to get what was the rank then. Later on, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add some things. So if you've watched that miniseries 10 times, I promise you, there's one thing in there that you haven't come across yet. So I wanted it to be an educational. I wanted it to reach and teach, as I like to say, and let it be a springboard. Let this be, because this is not an encyclopedia. This is not anything that's going to say, well, now I know it all. This should be, now I want to know more.
The starting point, yeah.
Exactly.
Right, get them interested in what their appetite alone.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
But you got some of these ideas from your trips to Fort Benning.
Yeah. So
about the training and
yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, those. I pulled upon all those experiences, meeting all those guys, meeting the actors, meeting the crew, the research guys, traveling to these places that are in this story, and that really helped, I think, give me an overall picture and get you something that you get started with, and now you get your own journey, and go learn about these guys.
Now, whenever Easy Company went to Normandy, did they parachute in behind the lines?
Absolutely.
Or okay,
Yeah.
so they were behind the lines as the invasion was happening.
That's right. So as Winter said in the series, he says, we're not lost, we're in Normandy, and then we're in I think it was Bastogne episode where he says, you're surrounded. He goes, we're paratroopers, we're supposed to be surrounded. That's one of the things that made those guys so special. They knew that as soon as they land, it's a 360-degree.
That's
The war's on, and you're in it. So
Right.
That's bound to be scary.
absolutely.
How was Doc whenever he landed?
22, if my memory's right. Yeah.
And
22.
is that the only time they jumped during their?
No, so
trip?
then he jumped again on Operation Market Garden into Holland. So
Okay.
got his 2 jumps. Yeah.
Okay, because Market Garden was kind of that didn't work out too well, I don't
No,
think.
not for us.
Yeah.
No, not for us.
So I guess we learned a lot of stuff, but we lost a lot of men.
Yeah, a lot of those ground troops. I mean, obviously the airborne guys lost, but those ground troops really took the brunt of it.
And though what I've come to learn is a lot of those people in France and Belgium and Holland, they really love Americans.
Yes, they do.
They really have a love for us, just like Danny.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Danny was, Danny translated my book into German, and so my book's been translated into French and Dutch and German. I have my Chinese translation being done. I'm going to slaughter that young lady's name. So, God bless, forgive me. But she said it, and I go, I'm going to have to practice it 1,000 times to try to say her name, and I apologize. But a young girl, like in her early 20s, who's studying in England right now, in Manchester, I think. It's translated, and all of my books, we're all friends. My translators are all friends of mine. Not a single one ever said, I want $1 for my work. They've all translated my book for free. No questions asked, which is a lot of work, obviously. But just a testament to the power of this mini-series and our World War II veterans, that they would say, I'm going to spend my time translate this book so that other people in my native language can learn this story and hear this story. And so I just think it's, again, there's so many wonderful things and people that have met because of Band of Brothers. But that's just that feeling like, hey, I need to share this. And so I'm going to translate it. I've got guys in Brazil who are translated in Portuguese right now. I met them in Normandy. So just out of the blue, hey, we want to translate this, which is great. Hey, there's a whole bunch of people in Brazil, but China is really excited, right? This is a group of people who need to hear the truth, right?
Yes, they
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
About real heroes, not made up heroes that the propaganda gives them. So it's been so neat, so neat. And I personally have mailed this book to 22 or 23 countries outside of America.
Have you really?
Wow.
Yeah. So that's not what whoever's bought it on Amazon. I mean, I have mailed it to 22, 23 countries. So, and that's not a testament to my writing. That's a testament.
And
to
where
to
can
the
they get
story.
this book?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
You can always email me. I'm on Facebook, WWII Publishing. Message me, email me.
What's the name of the book?
How Easy Company
How easy
became a
company?
Band of Brothers. And I'm happy to do signed copies. So Christmas is coming up. I've had a couple people already get it for Christmas presents. So I think that's a
And we can put that website, your website, on these Facebook pages too. So,
Sure.
appreciate it.
but you have another book that you're writing.
I've got two more coming. Next one's probably early next year. Patrick the Paratrooper is a 10-year-old boy who plays with his Army men just like any other 10-year-old boy was, and Pearl Harbor happens, and he's inspired to enlist. He sees the paratrooper, join the paratrooper sign on the wall, and he joins the paratroopers, and he gets assigned to Easy Company, and he fights the war. And I won't ruin the ending right now, but Patrick fights the war as a 10-year-old boy. So now that one's a little bit, now I'm trying to reach the early elementary. So
Okay.
now, hey,
Awesome.
start planting those seeds a little bit earlier, get them out of the middle school and start reaching them and say, hey, there's some stories that you need to know about.
You probably never dreamed, whenever you read those 3 pages in Band of Brothers books, that you'd be an author.
I wish he was here to see it, but you're right. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, 3 pages and here we are. Yeah.
When did he pass?
98, December of 98. And I'll tell you a funny story. He smoked Lucky Strikes till it killed him, right? Like so many of those
my dad
guys.
smoked Lucky Strikes.
LSMFT.
So like so many of those guys did. And so I remember we went over there Christmas Day, and I walked in, and he was battling cancer. And we walked in, and he pulled the mask off as we were walking in, the oxygen mask, and he turned off the oxygen and just grabbed that Lucky Strikes. And I go, Paul, what are you doing? And it's weird that I remember that because it doesn't matter. And 5 days later, he was dead. He knew it didn't matter. But, that's just what those guys were. Just rough and tough. He was a rough, tough guy.
And he didn't share much about the war with the family, did he?
No, almost none. Just a couple of good stories. We were telling you earlier, the end of the war when they find all the Gehring's wine and liquor, and Winter says, hey, make sure the other companies get some of this. And so, one of the stories was he drove one of those trucks loaded with Gehring's liquor, make sure the other companies got their fair share. And he told just one bad story. He told my aunt that he remembers a guy whose scalp just got flipped up, and I don't know who it is. I often wonder if that was Chuck Grant, who was shot by a drunken soldier at the end of the war. Terrible. You're almost done.
Friendly fire? No.
Friendly fire. Was
Friendly
drunk.
fire.
Yeah, one
Drunk
of the soldiers
fire.
was drunk. And so you just wonder if that was Chuck Grant, but there's no telling how many guys he dealt with that took head wounds. And so that was the only really bad story for a guy who saw it all. From D-Day to Hitler's Eagle's Nest, he's the only medic in that company that made it all the way through the war. So he saw every guy that was hurt. He saw every guy that was killed. So for him to not talk about it, you understand. But there's no doubt it changed him.
Yeah, and that's similar to John Boswell being a Navy medic on Iwo Jima, and he doesn't really want to share the story. He said, I've lived my whole life trying to forget every time I talk to him. And he'll share a little story here or there, but he really won't go into any kind of detail. And I think that what we find is that it's just so horrific as medics. And we think about what the average soldier saw, but you don't really think about what the medics, oh my goodness, they had to see some, just to your point, everybody, regardless of the minimal injury to the, there are nothing left of them kind of guys, right? They see it all.
That's right.
And a lot of Medal of Honor recipients and Silver Star and Bronze Star recipients have been medics.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah. Well, when you think about a line soldier, when his buddy goes down, that's not his responsibility, right? He's still in the fight. So he can intentionally ignore that, right? Which is where I would be, because I've got no stomach for gross. I
Right.
mean, if I looked over and saw, I'd be passed out, or I'd puke and pass out, whichever order that
Right.
came. But so those guys can intentionally disregard having to deal with that, whereas the medic, that's all he does. He doesn't get to fight, and the distraction of war.
Yeah.
That's his only
He's
gig.
focused on-
That's all he does. So every time,
Right.
every time. There's no reprieve, and I think that's an overwhelming factor. There's no reprieve. There's always going to be somebody hurt or
Yeah.
killed. So,
Yeah.
I talk a lot about that. There's a lot of admiration for Doc, and there should be. And I think he represents all the medics. He's just lucky enough that he was portrayed. But, there was something that my mom said a few years ago, because Doc met my grandmother while they were training in southern England for D-Day. So he ended up marrying a British girl. And so he stood her up on D-Day. They were to be married on D-Day. Obviously, he didn't make it, understandably. Came back and then married her after Normandy. And so my mom said something a few years ago that just clicked, because he drank after the war. And I think, I'm not ashamed of that in any way, shape, or form. I tell people all the time, I said, there's nothing to be ashamed of. He's a human. We watch a TV show and go, man, that's an awesome dude, right? And we forget that he was a human being.
Right.
Sometimes we get caught up in the glamour. But he drank. And so my mom said something. She goes, I don't think my dad, the man that my mom met, is not the man she married, because she met him before the war
Right.
and married him after war.
After he came back from the Eagle's Nest, or
I think it was after Normandy, because I think it was
Okay.
in August. Remember me?
because he went into Normandy, then came
Yeah,
back,
don't
and
catch me
then went
lying,
into
Rick.
Holland.
Yeah. So we were just at the World War II Museum in June for the big 20th anniversary symposium of Band of Brothers, which was an awesome event. If you look that up on YouTube, there's a lot of those videos, which are great. But we were walking through, you weaving through the museums and you turn in corners, and that in a corner they use that space. They'll put up quotes, and I love quotes. I love to write a book about quotes, but don't quote me on that. And one of them was, "No man goes to war and comes back normal."
You can't.
And I thought, that is a profound statement. And so it just solidified that mindset. And so those guys are just not the same. And it was an interesting use of the word normal, right? Because a lot of times you hear they come back changed. But I think it's different, to me it is, when it says you don't come back normal. And it's so true. It's so true for those guys.
Would that be true too with like a policeman? Like,
You
or a
read
police
my
officer.
mind. We're not the same, because I was a civilian until age 35. I didn't become a cop till I was later in life. God gave me a full head of hair, but He gave me bad knees. I kept blowing my knee out, and so it took me a while to be a cop, even though I wanted to be a cop. And so having a long time as a civilian, as opposed to coming in your early 20s, where you don't have a lot of life experiences, I'm different in that regard. Now, I'm very different. And I still say I'm normal.
You're normal for you're normal.
I'm normal. I'm a well-adjusted cop. I really am. And a lot of people are like, we get appreciate for us. And I
Right.
love, it's very humbling. I take that for, just like any serviceman would take that for all of the guys behind him, right? You see me and I'm another piece of blue polyester, which is, brings out the blue in my eyes. But I take that for everybody, not just me. And so, but you're not the same. But I don't take my work home for me. I'll never be a detective, because they do take they got a stack of desks. I don't do that. When I leave, it's over. But it's not over. I can't stop looking at seatbelts on my drive home, and license plates, and don't use your turn signal. I mean, for me, it doesn't, I watch hands. That's our, hand skill. We know that. So it doesn't turn off, and sometimes I wish it would. The first time I went to Normandy, my buddy picked me up at the Paris airport. We literally just pull out, we merge. Literally, he just picked me up 17 seconds ago, and I'm looking over trying to see the windshield sticker for their registration sticker, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Leave it back in Dallas.
I'm not even in Texas. I'm looking for Texas registration stickers. So,
Well, But it does change you,
You are,
because
absolutely.
you learn things that cause you to pay attention. You know, you go through the military service as we did, and you know, people go, well, why don't you want your back to the door? Well, because
I know.
I can't see.
That's right.
I can't see what's about to come up on me, and I need to know what's happening. And you know, I went to senior NCO academy with a guy who was a firefighter in the Air Force, and the first thing he did when he got any room we went into is he was scoping out, where are the fire extinguishers, where's the fire exit. So I think no matter what you're doing, when you're in a job like what you're in, or being in the military, it will change. It will cause you to react ways that I always said when I first got out of the Air Force, the first time from round one, I got around civilians and I didn't even like them. I couldn't understand them. I didn't like them. They weren't disciplined. I hated civilians. And it took me a while to adjust to them being in their world, and now I'm coming into their world versus them coming into mine.
Correct.
And so I had to make a lot of adjustments and get used to that. So that was a tough transition after 7.5 years. You know, I went in at 18, and 7.5 years later, because that's all I knew as an adult.
Right.
So it will make you change. You will change some of your behaviors.
There's a great quote by David Grossman, if you know, on killing. He wrote the book on killing. But he talks about the sheepdog. You know, I'm sure you've read that. You know, there's sheep, sheepdogs, and wolves, and you're one of those three. And so, for many of us who've been in the military or police, you know, you're always a sheepdog. You're just always a sheepdog. You're capable of violence, but you protect the sheep. And so that is just a mindset that's different, because the sheep are not sheepdogs.
Nope.
And they will not become sheepdogs. And so they don't understand. So that's where you get that change. You know, you become the sheepdog, and so you're not normal, but you're well adjusted.
Well, I like to think I'm well
I
adjusted.
am. I'm quite well adjusted. I love being a cop. I love being a cop. 15
I was the
years
first
later.
sergeant in the security forces
Okay,
out
so
here.
you know that.
And some of my guys are with Dallas PD.
Yeah, you
So,
know.
yeah.
I was born on Minot's base.
Why not
Why
Minot?
not Minot?
Yeah,
Because it's cold.
yeah, it sure is. And ain't nobody want to be there. It's kind of like being at Chinook,
That's
where I
right.
spent my first 5
my
years.
goodness,
Don't
yeah.
shoot 'em,
Cool up
snoot
there,
'em.
huh?
Mm.
Central Illinois in the winter. And I'm from the north, so it wasn't like I didn't know cold. But Katie barred the door, there was nothing to stop the cold running across the cornfields and the soybean. You know, it was just nothing but wind and cold and nasty in the winter.
You
Yeah,
can have
no.
Dallas as far north as I will ever live.
Yeah, me too.
Your life as a police officer, you've got a lot of things that are probably rewarding to you, that you can look back and say at the end of the day, you know, that was a good deal that happened. You know, it's not always, a lot of people think it's just bad all the time, but there's a lot of good that you see, you know, in things. And
Yeah, so when you have that mindset, you know, and somebody, you know, it gives me goosebumps because what I'm fixing to say, you know, a few years ago, and I never heard it, because I meet a lot of people with book signings and things like that, and a lot of admiration for Doc Rowe, and this guy goes, you have Doc Rowe running through your veins, and I go, man, nobody's ever said that to me, and I never thought about it, but then it's like, yeah, I do, that's my DNA, right? And for him to do what he did, right, takes a special person, and to do it as long as he did and as successfully as he did based on the other men's accounts. So yeah, I do. I have that, you know, I want to help. I drive to work. Some cops don't. They don't drive to work in their uniform. They don't want anybody to see them. But for me, putting on my uniform at home starts the mindset. I'm in cop mode. You know, I'm ready to go. So I have stopped on freeways, you know, when major crashes have just occurred. The cops have not made it there. The fire truck's not there yet. You know, I'm there. I'm out of my car because I'm in uniform, and now I'm ready to go. If somebody's hurt, ready to go. Tourniquet, bandages, car's on fire, we'll yank them out. If we need a direct chap, you know, whatever that is, I'm ready to go. I don't get to the police station now. I start getting, and you talk about being different. You know, that's, you know, we had a deal Sunday, but you're different because you put that thing on, and almost every day, and this is where civilians don't understand. Almost every day, either when I put this thing on or I'm walking in the parking lot to the station. Today may be the day that somebody kills me. Today may be the day that I kill somebody. Right? And so we're not the same and we're different. But that mindset, yeah, but I'm not ready to kill because somebody's trying to kill me. Somebody needs help. I'm ready to help. None of this stuff has to.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is because you are there. It's weird. I tell civilians this. You don't go to work with armor and a gun, right, to stop yourself from being killed or to kill somebody, and at the same time carry a tourniquet and bandages to stop somebody from dying, right? That's a dichotomy that you will not understand when you go to work and park in your parking garage and walk up to your desk in the air conditioner or the heat, right? You don't understand, and so I'm ready to help. Now I'll handle business if business needs to be handled, but if I got to save a life, let's go. Hopefully there's not too much blood. I don't.
Yeah, you already told us how you feel about that.
It's funny.
You didn't get that DNA from
No, I
Doc.
did not get that DNA. It's funny. Hopefully Mary's there and I can hand her my bandages.
Yeah, well,
There's a funny body cam where my buddy, a motorcyclist, Rex, right in front of him, and he runs out of the stuff that he had in his pocket. I was close, and I had a big bag of extra bandages, critical scene kind of stuff, and so my body cam is pointing down, right? And here's the the guy over here, he did evade. It was kind of his fault, but nonetheless, we tried to save his life. So my body cam's down. I'm like, "What do you need? What do you need?" He goes, "Blah, blah." So I'm handing it, right? And my sergeant goes, "I watched your body cam. It's pointed at the ground the whole time." Yes, sir, it was. Yes, sir, it was. Because if I'd have looked over there and seen what I'd seen, I'd have been your next patient because I'd have been face down.
Yeah.
I'd have been passed out on the side of a Spur 408.
In a
Useless.
pool of vomit.
A pool of vomit, useless to nobody, So anyway, so your strengths and weaknesses.
That's right.
But there I was, I'm ready. I'm here to help. But you're gonna get what you're gonna get. I'm not gonna stick my hands in there because I'll be laying there next to you, unfortunately.
So working for Dallas, does y'all's community stand up with y'all?
We do. There's a lot of good people in the world. I mean, there's evil and there's criminals. I mean, we get it, and there's crazy. But even in Oak Cliff, I still get people buy my dinner on a regular basis. I still get people wave to me, and not with just one finger. And people come up to me and say thank you for your
Because
support.
that has to make a difference.
It's got to, and again, we get caught up in this mindset that I'm the police, right, and I'm in charge, right, and a lot of times we are, but we are under a mandate of the people, right? Same thing in the military.
Right.
You have tanks and guns and bullets and missiles, but you're under the mandate of the civilians who tell you what you can and can't do, and they empower you, and so you've got to remember some of these things. Yes, you are. Protect and serve. Protect and serve. It's not a cliche to a lot of us. That's who we are. We protect and serve, and that's what we do.
Because that's even the good people and the bad people. You've got to protect and serve.
Absolutely. I put these bandages on a worthless piece of humanity who got shot. And in your mind you're like, listen, dude, I'm gonna have to I buy these things on Amazon. The city gives you some things, but some of the things they don't give you. So you go to Amazon and you buy your own bandages, right? So that's my $25. Then I may put on a worthless piece of humanity to try to save his life, but that's what you do.
Sure.
His trial is for somebody else to deal with. I'm here. You're bleeding. I'm gonna help you.
That's even whenever there's a police shooting, the first thing they do after the person's down is go try to keep them alive.
Absolutely. Now, so it's funny because we had one a couple months ago. A buddy of mine who did it, shot the guy, and so there was a lot. So if you shoot at the police, right, that's a crime, right? Ag assault public servant. That's you've committed a crime in the state of Texas. So after he's shot, the first thing you do is you put him in handcuffs. He's under arrest. You committed a crime, right? Now we're going to start, rendering aid. So there was a big uproar in the community. Why'd they have to handcuff him? He's under arrest. Now we will try to save his life, but but if you live, you're going to go to jail.
Right.
So again, we don't, and this is a problem that I think less so in the military, but more so in the police world, we don't communicate why we do what we do very well to the civilians. They don't understand why you're going to handcuff a guy after you just shot him, because legally he's under arrest. So you're detained. We're going to use handcuffs. I don't know if you're dead. I don't know if you're going to get a second wind. I don't know if you have another gun on your person.
Right.
Exactly.
Tucked in your back, tucked in your waistline. With the phrase, if there's one gun, there's two. That's the world we live in. If I find one, there's two. You just live that way. And so, yeah, you're not gonna hurt me anymore, but I will try to save your life.
Right.
So, yeah, even on police shootings, we're gonna try to save your life. Yeah, even though you try to kill us, we're still gonna do what we.
In Dallas, you know, they lost. How many officers did they get that day?
On
when they were-
7-7.
yeah.
5. Yeah.
7?
It was on 7-7.
Seven,
July
yeah.
7th.
7-7.
4 from Dallas and 1 from Dart. 5 total.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that was a very dark day in
It's terrible.
law enforcement
Terrible.
when
Terrible.
somebody took their life. But
Did you know any of those
You know,
officers?
3 of them were from my station. That's how
Were
it
they
was, 3
really?
of them. And I was on the day shift, and all those guys were on the evening shift. So I would pass them. I knew them in passing, you know. And Aaron's, the big guy, who had just left the detective spot and come back in patrol, had just covered me. Within the last month, I didn't know him from Adam, but I got stuck late. Gang unit needed me to stop this guy, so I stopped him on a traffic stop. He's covered in head to toe in tats, very nervous, and I was by myself. And so I'm like, hey, you know, I need some cover. Well, Big Aaron's is the one that showed up. So I mean, and it's nice because I mean, when you show up, it's 6'2", 6'3", 250, 260. You know, it's nice to have that guy next to you. But I went in that night. You know, I worked. I think I was on a 10 to 6 shift, so I mean, I was off at 6 p.m. and I was just fixing to get in the shower. And I'm still a kid, so I normally at night I turn on cartoons. But for some reason, when I turned on the TV, the news was on, and so they were live. And so I told my wife, I'm fixing to go. I'm fixing to go. She goes, no, you're not. You're staying here. And again, she's a cop too, but she's like, no, you need to stay here. But that mindset is just, I'm going. You know,
Right.
They need help, and I'm going. And 5 minutes later, I got the text. I was in a specialized unit. We got called in. So I mean, I ended up going. I spent all night and left at 4 in the morning.
she's a police officer
She is,
also
yeah.
for Dallas or
Arlington.
Arlington. Okay.
Oh, I know lots of people in Arlington PD.
You got the
I know PD
Part-
everywhere. It
Yeah.
happens when you're
You
security
sure,
forces first
absolutely.
sergeant,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I got one I was out walking one morning, and one of the Benbrook guys drives past me and turns around. He comes back and rolls down his window. Oh, I know you. He said, I thought that was you. He's one of the guys who I was his first sergeant.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's kind of cool. I run into people all over the
Sure,
place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they're amazing, you know, and I've always had to explain to whenever we were integrated with active duty, because we know they're reservists. So, you know, we were even at Fort Bliss getting ready to deploy. So we had 3.5 weeks of training at Fort Bliss, where we have a actual you're out in a fob somewhere in the desert, and so you're doing all this training. You're doing, you know, mounted ops and dismounted ops, and you know, firing all these different weapons and everything else. And these active duty guys, because we didn't deploy alone, reserve and guard integrated with the active duty. And so we're out there, and these guys are, you know, a high and mighty. Well, you know, I've been in Air Force security forces for 20 years as an active duty guy. And, you know, you guys don't know anything. You only go, you know, 2 days a month, whatever. You guys don't know what you're doing. And I said, let me explain something to you. See that guy over there? He's Houston SWAT team. See this guy over here? He's San Antonio gang unit. You see this one? And I'm pointing out these people, and I said, they see more action in a week than you've seen in your entire career.
Right.
So don't tell me that you are more capable than our guys,
Right.
because you're not.
Correct.
Because they see more action. You know,
Sure.
as a security forces person in the Air Force, unless on active duty, unless you're going out into situations when you're deployed that might put you in that line of fire, you're just not really seeing it. You know, once in a blue moon we have something like happened at Lackland and things like that. But for the vast majority, they don't understand. The people that are in the military, that also a lot of police officers serve, and they're not just, I had some in aircraft maintenance when I was first sergeant there that were also police.
Yeah.
So they serve in all kinds of different units, but when you're in security forces, the vast majority of them are on the civilian side, are police somewhere in some community, and they see a lot.
they do.
They see a lot.
That's right.
And a lot of, I mean, the stuff you see, you can't unsee. You know?
Yeah, and I guess for some people that's true. And I've spent most of my career in specialized units. I haven't, I don't go to dead body calls. I don't work crashes where it's mangled parts because I can't do it.
I'm feeling a theme here.
Yeah. Now, I have done I've probably done 10,000 traffic stops, and I have written a whole bunch of tickets, and I've put personally hundreds of people in jail. My goal is to hit that number. I want 1,000 bad guys in jail before I end this career. And I'm 70% of the way there. So I have done some things different. I have not done the patrol. So I don't see those things. Now, I will tell you, in my first year in patrol, I did see, that on a freeway. Pedestrians trying to change a tire, got struck by a drunk. Half of his body's embedded, and they picked up parts. And so that's 13 years ago. I can still see that scene, right? So yes, in some degree, yeah, you can unsee it. And some people like that. Some people are just into that gross stuff, and I'm just not. But we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I talk to people well. I can traffic stop the daylights out of you. I did 800 traffic stops last year. So, I mean, I'm good at that, and I can hand them 5 tickets, and they can shake my hand, and we can fist bump. So that's a skill that I love, and then we find warrants and guns and drugs, and we get to play the handcuff game, and off to loose stair we go. And so I have a lot more of those kind of stories where just the silliness of what people say and do on traffic stops and on their way to jail. Men crying on their way in, and I have a lot of those kind of stories where I don't have as many of the unsee stories because, again, I'd be the next.
But with every traffic stop, there's always the potential there that could be the one where the person comes out with a gun
and so you're talking about why we're not the same, right? So 800. I looked it up because I wanted to see 800 traffic stops last year. I know I've done 10,000. So 2 things happen on a traffic stop for me. I step out that car, my left hand turns on my radio, and my right hand drops that. I grab my gun, and my thumb's right here ready for this to come out. Every time, every single time. So 10,000 times I've done that, and I tell rookies, I said, you've got to be prepared to blow that guy's head off, right? Because on a traffic stop, that's all you got, right? You just have head and shoulders. So if that guy turns and starts, or if he jumps out, you have got to be ready to kill that person. 10,000 times I've been ready to kill that person. But at the same time, as soon as I get there, it's all, I'm a joking guy. Those speeders. What's our hurry? And I gesture like that. I talk to people in that tone because I want them to tell me what I want to hear. I want them to say, I've got to go to the bathroom. I'm late to pick up my kid. I'm late for work.
Oh, no, I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you. If you pull me over, I'm just going to tell you because if they ask me why I'm speeding, it's just because I'm driving.
There you go. So it is that dichotomy. It's that I'm not a normal person. I am ready to kill you, but I'm ready to joke with you, and I'm ready to fist bump you at the end, and if something's going on, I care. I've had people just start crying. I'm having a bad day. No, I'll lean on that. What's going on? Tell me. I'm interested. I had a young girl that sticks out, young, early, 19, 20. She goes, I'm having tough. My mom, I don't have any family. I was able to save enough money. This is my first car. I just got my first job. And I don't know this girl from Adam. And I said, I'm very proud of you. You have a lot of things going. And she just wept. She says, no one has told me that they're proud of me. And I was ready to kill her.
Did you give her a ticket?
She got 3 tickets. Don't do 55 and 35. I'm sorry. Slow down. Lesson learned. I'm proud of you. Don't drive 55 and a 35 for me. Okay. But again, from where you start that traffic stop to where it ends, right, is an unknown.
Yeah.
But it's always a chance to be positive. And I tell rookies the same thing. We don't teach, millennials have all texted and played video games, right? They don't know how to talk.
Right.
They don't know how to talk. And so
Right.
you've got to learn that this is all a business of talking, right? You don't use this. You'll probably go 30 years and never use this in anger. You're going to use this a million times. You're going to use this a million times, and you need to be using this a million times. So if you don't know how to talk to people, if you don't know how to give people 5 tickets and have them shake your hand, I've had guys, you know, we're in a world of black and white, you know, racial things, all that stuff. I've had grown men in their 50s, black guy, step out of the car. He go, "Can I give you a hug?" Absolutely, you can. Absolutely. Come on, man, get out of the car. He got 5 tickets. Don't get me wrong. But he hugged me, right? So if you don't know how to make a difference, and I tell them all the time, if it's just waving at people at the red light, you know, because they look over and you read their face. They're either scared of you, they're angry at you, they're indifferent about you, but you can always wave and smile. Now, what they do with it is their problem.
That's right.
But I can make a difference. I can make a difference. And so that's how you, again, you protect and serve. If you have that mindset, then you can go out here and make a huge difference, no matter what color you are, no matter what color they are, no matter what much money they have, what part of town you're in, all right? Because I've driven around Preston Hollow, and I don't like driving around Preston Hollow because there's no bad guys there for the most part. You know, I go to places where bad guys are, and that's where I want to hang out. I like to meet new people and place them in jail. But you can always make a difference. You can always make a difference. And so we get caught up in the headlines and all this stuff, and you can be a cop and get caught up, and you can get caught up in the politics of the department and the politics of the city of Dallas and Dallas County and all the issues that you have. But you can come to work and do what you do, and that's what you can control, and you can make a difference
Yep, make a difference one person at a time. That's all we can do.
every day.
So here's somebody that's carrying on their grandfather's DNA
Right.
to make a difference in the world,
Absolutely.
because he made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
In that journey he made across Europe. Just think about all the sights, sounds, and things that he saw, the people he saw that he loved, his brothers
That's right.
get killed,
Mm-hmm.
and to end up not getting killed at the Eagle's Nest.
Right.
And you brought us something. This is, Mary, can you hold that up?
Sure.
And this is from the Eagle's Nest.
Somewhere Birch's Garden, Eagle's Nest. So the story we have that obviously he married a British girl, and so the men gave him 10 forks and 10 knives from somewhere around Hitler's playground there. So God knows who
Isn't that cool?
used those, but we've got 10, and it's a neat reminder.
Wow.
Spoils of war, but also the stories, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
They have a story for our family, right? But then there's a story behind
Yeah.
who held those, and so things have stories just like people do.
And they have little intricate, you can't see them, of course, but little intricate designs even on them. So
pretty
that's,
fancy.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And your grandmother had 10 pieces of that.
Yeah, 10 forks, 10
And
knives.
so you ended up with,
I got a set, they're scattered around the family. So, but I like to. My mom did that. She would go to schools back home in Baton Rouge and show that. So
would
now
she
I do.
tell the story about your dad too, your mom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I do the same thing and take it around
Yeah.
That's
and
cool.
share it. Yeah. If you don't,
It-
again, you don't share it, you don't.
Yeah, and I think you made such a great point about, and I think that's what we see with Don and many of our other vets. Fisk did it a lot when he was still with us, and Carmen when he could. He's not
Right.
capable right now. He's just not been as healthy. But the reality is that they just know that if we don't teach the young people, and that's what we say all the time at Roll Call, is if we don't share the stories, if we don't tell the history, then the children are going to not remember. They're not going to care.
That's right.
And sometimes they still don't care, but you never know. You might plant one little, they might act like they have no care whatsoever about what you're talking about, but you might plant one little nugget that one day grows, and they go, I remember when I was younger, and somebody, and then it spurs their interest. So all you can do is plant those seeds, but we have to do it, and we have to have schools that are still okay with, we used to go to one middle school every year and throughout the year, and have guys go in and speak to the students, and they had a change in the leadership, and they don't have us come in anymore. But the schools, if the schools would just be open and let us get these veterans in there, get people in to share stories, it might spark that little bit of interest in somebody. And it may not be today, may not be tomorrow, but
it's,
one day.
It's like the seed you said, you know.
Right.
You plant it today, you don't harvest today.
Right.
That's right.
But and this is one of those seeds,
Right.
though. But this is one of those seeds that you're planting all around the world in 4 or 5 different languages now, and that's how Easy Company became a band of brothers. And I'm anxious to read the book,
I'm glad.
and I'm anxious for my grandchildren to read the
Yes,
book.
that's what I was going to say. My grandchildren need to read that book.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we donate. So we, through the family members of Easy, we started a nonprofit, and we donate copies of my book to schools. So there's another way to get it out there. We try to put it in schools. So
We appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely.
Anything we can do to keep history alive,
Right.
and the history of our ancestors, our fathers and grandfathers.
That's right.
And we've enjoyed having you on the show today, Chris.
Thank you so much. It's
Thank you
my
for
honor, my pleasure.
coming here before you go to work.
Yes, we're gonna go. We don't charge gas money to take people to jail on Tuesday, so I look forward to meeting someone new today.
Well, I'm glad that you came here and that Danny got us together
That's right.
to get you here. And thank you for the stories about Doc Rowe and the stories about you and your service to our community. So,
And hopefully Danny's watching. I don't
Oh,
know.
I
I
think she is, yeah.
don't know what time it is, but Danny tends to be
yeah,
on
maybe
our
we can get
Facebook
her
a
on
lot.
sometime.
We'll have to do
Yeah,
that. But she's a hoot.
But
She
thank
really
you.
Never
is.
sleeps. She's awake at all hours.
Yeah.
of
I know
the day.
it. I know it.
So yeah.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we
you for the
appreciate
invitation.
your service to the community. And Mary, we've got roll call the 9th.
We're ready.
And this Friday, Patriot Anglers, we had Lou Duck Wall. We had him on early on in one of our first shows with Patriot Anglers. They've got a clay shoot at Elm Fork over in Dallas. And then we've got the Armed Forces Bowl coming up the 22nd. You can get tickets, 4 tickets for every veteran for free. We've got the First Responders Bowl over in Dallas. I don't know the date of that, but I think first responders can get tickets to that free. And then we got Holidays and Heroes coming up this weekend with
Yeah,
Carrie.
she's at almost 200 families.
That's
Wow.
great.
She said you remember. She texted me and she said, "You remember when you said on the show we were going to hit 200?" She said, "I think last count she was at 186."
That's good.
And she had to cut it off because at some point you have to,
Yeah.
because otherwise you can't get it all together in time, and it's a huge undertaking. That's where this morning I dropped off my gifts for the family that I had, and just to make sure that they were there, because I won't be able to be at the event because I'll be at Pearl Harbor.
And we've got the bicycle giveaway the 17th.
17th, I just had a lady, Wes, call me. Wes and I did a little show on Saturday promoting it, and a realtor from down around on the coast,
Yeah, Rockport.
Rockport, overnighting a check for $1,000.
That's
Wow.
10 bicycles. And that's a great example of the community coming together.
Sure.
Because you've got restaurants, business people, individuals, the police department, the fire department, and you've got all these people bringing bicycles to give to children.
And you're talking about the stories. I don't know if I've told it, but I really like to tell it. There was a young Hispanic guy, probably 30, came in one day, and I had some people. But anyway, we sat down and talked, and he said, "I'm going to bring 5 bikes, and I want to be here to give them away." And I said, "Great." He said, "You gave me my only bike when I was 13.
Wow.
And I said, "Wow, when you were 13. And he said, "How long have you been doing it?" And I said, 36 years.
Been doing it a long time, Larry.
Yeah,
A lot of happy kids with new bicycles
right.
and
So
helmets.
that's what you talk about when you plant that nugget. And he remembered, and he said, "I'm just a working guy. I don't have a real good job." But he said, "I've been saving my money all year." And he said, "I've got 500 extra bucks to," And he said, "No, I want to give it away because it's important
Yeah.
for that child to get a bike."
Sure.
Yep, you always want to give back. When
Yeah.
any time that you've been fortunate, you want to always give back.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a good show.
Yeah,
Chris, again, thank you for being here.
Thank y'all.
22nd show in the books.
Yeah, we were anxious to have your next book too.
That's right. We'll come back. We'll come
Okay.
back. Well, as long as you get a good review on the first book, and you're okay with my Louisiana writing. So the next book will be for elementary school kids, like 2 or 3 sentences.
Perfect.
So it's right up my alley,
Perfect.
right?
Very
Yeah, 2 or
good.
3 sentences per book.
I
per
got
page.
I got elementary grandkids
There
too.
you go.
Got
There
them
you
all
go.
ages.
That's it.
Well, Larry, thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
You have a special going on
Yes,
the details?
yeah, we're
Okay.
running our 40 and 50% off.
That's a good deal.
And you buy a gift certificate, it's good for a year. So
And you can give that to
sold 10 of
somebody
them
else
yesterday.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, a good Christmas present.
one lady
Because
bought 3 yesterday.
I never have had a car that clean that wasn't brand new. You know, 'cause, I mean, it was like
I've been doing that a long
showroom.
time too, 47
You're
years.
pretty good at that.
So the key is Hispanic females. Every one of my locations, that's all I hire.
They're good.
For my business, they're the best.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Hometown Heroes.
Hometown Heroes.